let's pause for a moment and take kind of everything that we've heard and put it into context through an example. So Principle 7, we're talking about interventions now. Interventions with young children and family members must be based on explicit principles, validated practices, best available research, relevant laws and regulations. Your early intervention team will work together to identify interventions and support needed to achieve the functional outcomes in your IFSP. So what we've done up to this point is we've had our core team, our core early intervention team. We've sat down, we've created our IFSP, we've done our child and family assessment, we've created some functional outcomes. So now let's take a look at how we can put that all together in context through an example. So think about our child Juan in the grocery store. The interventions that the team put into place were this. The team lead for the family is the developmental special instructor who is the primary service provider for the family. That's the person we identified through the child and family assessment and developing the functional outcomes. She was the best fit for the family. So first, the occupational therapist participated in a joint visit with the DSI to observe the grocery shopping routine, to see where we are right now. The observation resulted in the team agreeing to provide intensive intervention over a 4-week period through FAB scheduling. The family and the early intervention team discussed what types of interventions to use, and in this case, the DSI, working with the parents, created a grocery cart book that helped prepare Juan for grocery shopping and also helped keep him engaged as the family completed the routine. During the 4 weeks of intervention, the service provider assisted the family in redirecting Juan when his behaviors became an issue, and also coaching the family on how to redirect Juan when the behaviors became an issue, and also tried other sensory items at the recommendation of the occupational therapist. At the end of the 4-week period, Juan's parents felt confident in taking him grocery shopping, preparing for the trip, and how to redirect him when needed. Although their shopping trips aren't perfect, the family can now participate in an activity that they had not been successful for in several months. Okay, so transitioning. We're going to switch gears to the process of transitioning out of early intervention services. So to ensure a smooth transition for a child turning 3, regulations, policies, and procedures are in place to help the transition out of early intervention program and into an early childhood program if the parents choose to do so. Depending on when the child becomes eligible for early intervention services, the process begins around the child's 2nd birthday. It starts with a discussion with the family about what their thoughts are for their child when they turn 3. And what possible early childhood programs may be available for the child and the family. The service coordinator helps the family understand the different transition activities required of the IFSP team in the upcoming several months. And here are some of the possible programs that may be available for young children with a disability. We have our early childhood special education that we'll talk more about this. Head Start programs could be an option. A private preschool like a Tutor Time or a Kidsville or something like that. Daycares, continued DDD, Arizona Long-Term Care, home and community-based services, or services through the Arizona Schools for the Deaf and the Blind. So, transition planning. One requirement is that an IFSP transition planning meeting must be held between the time the child is 2 years and 6 months and 2 years 9 months old. It can happen as early as 2 years 3 months if everybody agrees to that. Think of 2 years 9 months as this kind of magical number, this magical age in the process, and it ensures that if a child is going into the local public school, that the school district will have enough time to fully evaluate and plan for the child to enter their program on their 3rd birthday. In this meeting, in this transition planning meeting, the team will have conversations about the steps necessary to support the parents in gathering additional information about early childhood programs of interest, such as meeting with representatives of programs, visiting programs, talking to other parents, etc. They'll also have conversations about specific steps needed to support the child's successful transition to the program of choice. So steps that can help the child adjust to and function in a new setting. They'll also have discussions about identifying any transition services that the IFSP team determines are needed by the child and his or her family. So perhaps familiarizing the child with the school setting by helping the family develop some social stories or picture schedules. AzEIP and state agencies, Department of Education, have agreements in place to automatically refer children to their local public school to ensure a smooth transition from early intervention to early childhood special education. If the parent has other plans for the child when they turn 3, they can opt out of this automatic referral process in writing, and the child's information won't be sent to the public school. At any time, the parent can certainly change their mind and contact their local public school and begin the process over again. So you're not locked in. Parents can always revoke consent and then reconsent for services if they want to. If at the transition planning meeting the parent agrees to a transition conference, it will take place between 2 years 6 months and 2 years 9 months. And again, if everyone agrees, it can happen earlier, as early as 2 years 3 months. It should take place at a time and location convenient for the family, and if possible, include representatives from the early childhood programs that the parents are interested in. The focus of the transition conference is to revise the transition plan developed at the prior IFSP meeting, or develop the transition plan if the conference is also the initial IFSP meeting. And also to provide parents with information about various programs they're interested in, as well as the steps that the transition conference attendees will take to support the parents in their decision making. So think of it as, the folks that are at the transition conference may have action items to help the parents visit certain programs or explore other options. The transition conference summary will document any action steps determined necessary by the team, who is responsible, and by what date. And that's a piece of the IFSP, it's an additional document called the Transition Conference Summary. As promised, I said we'd talk about early childhood special education, so we're going to talk about that. So let's suppose that we go through our transition planning meeting and the parents and they're really looking forward to their child's enrollment at the public special education preschool. Depending on where you are, this program may be called different things. Some school districts call it their developmental preschool. Some call it a priority preschool. Some call it some long big acronym that doesn't seem to relate to preschool at all, but it is in fact their early childhood special education program. Regardless of what it's called, the program serves children 3 to 5 years old, and it has its own evaluation and eligibility process. We're not going to go too much into the detail of the process right here, but just know that many children transitioning out of early intervention are eligible, and those who aren't eligible may have other options available to them, like a Head Start program. I'll talk just a little bit about preschool eligibility. Eligibility for early childhood special education or preschool special education is determined by a multidisciplinary evaluation team, and the child would need to meet the eligibility criteria for one of these categories. And again, on our webinar companion, there's more information about eligibility criteria for each of these categories. So developmental delay, preschool severe delay, visual and hearing impairments, and speech and language impairment. You can find more information there on the eligibility criteria to get into the developmental or preschool special education. If your child is eligible for early childhood special education, they're going to receive this special education and related services as is listed in the child's Individualized Education Program. And again, you won't see the F in that acronym because the family gets dropped. And when we move to preschool, it's child-focused and not family-focused. But the requirement is to provide specially designed instruction to meet whatever those unique needs are of the child. The IEP must be in place by the child's third birthday, provided the child is eligible for early intervention services prior to 2 years, 9 months of age. Again, that's that magic number that we talked about earlier. The child is afforded a free and appropriate public education. That's also known as FAPE. And FAPE for a child is determined by that child's IEP team. So if you miss the two-year, 9-month cut, you pretty much go straight to the school district's Child Find program. And depending on how close the child is to their third birthday, the service coordinator will assist in making the referral and help the family with a plan to transition into that program. For children eligible for DDD and Arizona Long-Term Care, they're automatically going to be referred to the DDD Children's Unit. This is a little bit of information on what they're going to be learning in preschool. So once the IEP is developed and the child begins his or her school career in preschool, we're still focused on developmental skills. So we're still cognitive development, we're thinking about things like problem solving and thinking. Physical development, fine and gross motor skills, appropriate pencil grasp, and accessing the playground appropriately. Communication development, expressive and receptive communication, natural speech, sign language or through a communication device. Social and emotional development, some examples are appropriate peer interaction, socialization, behavior. And then adaptive development, self-help skills, toileting, feeding, dressing, etc. Our children had been served through an IFSP, which focuses on teaming with and coaching families to support children. Now our children are served through an IEP, which focuses on supports and services for teachers and students. The F in family gets dropped from the plan as the child goes off to their new job, which ultimately is school that they'll be in for the next several years of their life.